Hi, I'm Jessica Ensel from West Broward High School, and this is my documentary behind the performance. Hope you like it.
Shortcuts. Documentary. What do you do when the outlet to release your struggles is what created them in the first place? My name is Karl Cohen, and I'm a dancer. Dance started off as a hobby, but quickly became my most honest form of expression. As I danced, I found that it was more than just movement. It was a journey of both learning about and losing myself at the same time. When I started dancing, the environment was very positive, and I was always really happy dancing, and I loved being around the people I was dancing with. I loved my dance teachers. And then I actually remember there was this one time when I was younger, I had started dancing, and this girl, I don't remember exactly what it was, but she made a comment on something I was wearing. And I just, still to this day, I remember it because it had such an impact on me, because I felt so embarrassed by what she had said, and I was like, why, I don't know, she was judging me, and I couldn't understand why, because I've never been a judgmental person, and that's fine, everyone is different, but I think once that happened, I started to, I feel like that was around the time that I could say that I was starting to look into myself a lot more, and I started to judge myself, because, the people you surround yourself with have a large impact on you personally, and I think that judgment, I started to take it in internally, and I started to judge myself. I think once I joined a competition team is when things started to shift a little bit for me. I think that once I joined this competition team, there was an infinite amount of judgment, and there was a lot of criticism, and I think that there's a thin line between criticism and encouragement, and I think that in this particular space that I was training in, encouragement often was criticism. As I became a competitive dancer, it was less about who I was, but instead how I could change myself to fit the idea of being a perfect dancer. As I tried to chase this concept of perfection, I struggled to take care of my mental and physical well-being. When I was in this specific dance environment, there were good moments that we had as a team, and there was things that we did together outside of dance that will definitely that are things that I will cherish. But I think that in this specific situation for me, and the point in my life that I was at the time, the bad outweighed the good, because I just felt as if it wasn't home to me. And I feel like when you're dancing in a place and when you're dedicating all of your time, like, that place starts to feel like home, and it starts to feel like a place that you're comfortable in. And I think that it almost became an artificial environment for me, because when I went there, like, I dreaded going to dance, and I was always nervous, and it wasn't really about the people who I was surrounded by at that point, because all of my teammates were amazing, and I still have relationships with a lot of them to this day, and they're relationships that I will have for the rest of my life. But I think it was the personal, how I treated myself in that environment, and how the pressure of being this amazing dancer and always doing this right and always being perfect and always having to be here and always having to look like this, like, I think those expectations, those unrealistic expectations, started to get to me. When the pandemic hit, I lost the structure that dance had provided me, forcing me to face what I was avoiding. Although it is still difficult for me to put into words what I had been going through, I recognized that the unhealthy habits I had formed had become my new normal, leaving me with choices to make. Once we had this long break, I was like, okay, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing with my life? I realized how unhealthy the relationship I had with myself was, and I realized that I really wasn't happy at all. And I was dancing, I was doing what I loved, or what I had thought that I loved. And, I was going to competitions and we were winning, and my solo was doing good, and all my dances were scoring well, and we would get special judges awards, and people would compliment me, and But then I realized when we had this long break and I was by myself and working on myself that none of that truly made me happy. I think for the first time in a really long time in my life, and I think maybe even the first time that I did this for myself personally, I really took a step to better myself, and I didn't really care about what anyone else had thought about it because I was in a really bad place in my life being in this negative environment, and I realized that the impact this had on my life had completely changed the person I was, and it had turned a lot of light in my life into a lot of darkness. And I think that once I finally realized that, and I realized it, and I don't think at that time I didn't know the extent to how bad it had been until now looking back at it. But I think once I finally made that decision, I remember as soon as I had decided that I wanted to do better for myself, I felt this like relief in my body and in my life, and I started to train for me, and I started to do things for me, and I started to look into new studios for me, and that was something that felt really good when for the longest time I had just been doing everything else for everybody else around me. This might be my personal experience, but it's not one that other dancers are foreign to. People tend to shed light on the entertainment and expression brought through dance while ignoring the mental and physical effects and insecurities that dancers develop along the way that could be life-altering. In dance, a lot of the time, these unrealistic expectations and this constant pressure to be perfect and be something that you're not is a common experience. And I think that what really makes or breaks it is the people you're surrounded by and the environment that they create for you. And I think this, is specifically something with dance teachers. And, I think that, and this is not, directed towards anyone specifically or like any specific place or specific person, but I just think that dance teachers have to be more mindful of how they're treating their students, and they have to consider that there's only a certain amount of expectations you can put on somebody without ripping away completely who they are. Like, dance is something that has a lot of diversity in it, and I think, like I said, that the art form is when the uniqueness in it is what makes it so beautiful. And I think that it's easy to forget that when you want your team to all do this at the same time, and you want this dance to look this specific way, and you want your dancers to do a specific style, and you want them to look like this, and their hair has to be like this, and they have to dress like this. Like, it creates robots. I think that anxiety and that stress of always trying to please other people and always trying to get something materialistic out of dancing or out of conventions, competitions, going to your studio and impressing your dance teacher, I think that oftentimes takes over what dance truly is. And I think that when people are always so anxious about winning something or so anxious about getting a trick or making their teacher proud, I think that they forget that at the end of the day, like, look at how beautiful just dancing is for yourself, and look at how beautiful, like, just moving around and looking awkward and rolling around on the floor and doing whatever you want, like, how beautiful that is. And this dance world has put in our minds that you have to win this and you have to be this and you have to go out after you graduate and be in a contemporary company and know this person, you have to have these connections, like, when in reality, like, no, you don't. Like, everyone has a different journey, and everyone has a different path of getting to where they want to get. And just dancing and being yourself and finding your own artistry is going to take you a lot further than stressing about winning a title or stressing about getting a trophy or first place, because that's all materialistic. And once you go off into the real dance world, like, no one's going to remember what you won, or they're going to love you and they're going to appreciate you for the artistry and the person that you are and that you've built through your dance career. Dance is pure and holds so much internal and external beauty, though beyond this are also the internal faults and struggles that are oftentimes overlooked. And as long as dance is in my life, I will always have to recognize and grow through these struggles.